Hello everyone. As people filter in, people are very on time, which I think is good. Hi. You've always got to, like, with these kind of things, you've always got to kind of wait a few minutes, like have like 10 minutes of awkward small talk before to make sure people are here. So it's always like, oh,
Yeah.
hi, hello, kind of this to make sure everyone's turned up. But people are super on time today, which is good. So you're obviously the deputy.
Whoever's here, hi.
Yeah, hi. You're the deputy editor of Onyx. How long have you been working for the magazine?
Yeah, so I'm deputy editor for editorial, and I joined this year, I'm pretty sure it's from May, so it's been about 5 months now, almost 6 months, so it's been a really good ride so far, and I'm absolutely loving it. And yeah, it's just the best, because I think a lot of the times in publishing as well, you find that it can be very, for want of a better word, white, and you don't always get the representation that you want to see. And I think that's what's so great about Onyx, because it's just unapologetically for Black creatives, and it uplifts Black creatives, and it's the whole new generation of writers, and it's just awesome. It's like really fulfilling. So I'm really loving it, essentially.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, is it like you've obviously got quite a strong team, and there's quite a lot of you, which is nice as well. Do you feel as kind of the deputy editor as they're kind of as a high, not higher up per se, but you've got quite an important role. How is it nice having a team? Is it like inspiring to kind of have people around you? Because I know you guys have a lot of people that kind of you work with you and work for, which must be lovely. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's great. I think we have about 11, maybe 10, 11 people in editorial as well. It's our biggest team we've had so far. So I think there is a certain amount of pressure, obviously, when you're, leading such a large team. But I think, the editors and sub-editors that we have are also inspiring and have all such great ideas. It's, when you have a great meeting and everyone's coming up with everything and the blog posts that they want to write or the things they want to put in the magazine, it's just like super inspiring and sort of energizing, because you just get really excited about what's coming next. And I think that's kind of the thing you need to like keep you going and to keep you in it. So it's really good fun. It's, yeah, again, it is a bit of pressure, but in a good way. And it's also like out of your comfort zone and good skill, like life skills, because ultimately, as we go forward in our career, we'll at some point have to manage at least one person, most of us anyway, I assume. So yeah, no, it's really great.
Yeah, I think for me, like I've always kind of, well, not always, but I'm kind of now just expanding to have more people on board. It's always kind of just been me, and it's quite it's a really odd transition to suddenly have to like hand over a bit of a power and have like this team. But it's so nice in the same time, like especially if you're really keen about what you do and the kind of message and the space that you're creating, it's so nice to have other people to do that with. But also hard. I'm a massive perfectionist and only child, so I'm not very good at handing over the power at all or sharing anything. But I think that's one thing. Obviously I've followed your magazine a lot, and I think I've always noticed that you have a big team, and I think it's really important and nice for you all to to work together and to collaborate and kind of come up with all the ideas and make the best space for yourselves and for the whole zine, and kind of obviously by having a lot of people working on it create something great and with lots of different minds and everything. How long?
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I'm a perfectionist as well. But I think also like it depends, because we've got such a great leader in Theophina as well. It's just there's so much vision and there's so much focus, and I think that's just such a great thing, because we know exactly what we're aiming for and what we're going to do. And I think that's like so key and just keeps everyone going, because I know if I'm having a bad day or a bad time of it, I can literally just call her up and she'll set me straight. Like, she's a wise one, Theophina. She's very wise, and she knows what she's about. So you couldn't ask for a better leader, to be honest.
Oh, that's great. And I was going to say, before Onyx, were you in magazines before? Had you ever worked anywhere before, or is this kind of your first venture into publishing?
Sorry, 1 second. The other side, Dad. I'm doing a webinar. Can you get out? Yeah. Sorry.
Hi.
Sorry, the perils of my Dad just crashed.
No worries. I've literally I banned all my flatmates from the kitchen for an hour. I was like, no one come in, don't touch the door. Like, no, it's hard when you live with other people to kind of make the space for something like this. But
I did put on the family chat, and I said no one come in here from 7 till 8, and it's typical because it's just me and him who's home at the moment. But what are you gonna do?
Exactly. He can make his debut on the webinar. That's fine with me. I don't mind. An extra panelist is never goes amiss.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, funnily enough, it's my dad who actually got me into publishing. So I work on Onyx, but I'm also an editorial assistant at Penguin Random House currently. So I've been sort of in the publishing industry for about maybe 2.5 years, including the internships that I did before my full-time role. And I think, yeah, it's quite scary to think of how long it's been, but also it's kind of barely any time at all, because there is so much to learn and so much going on. And I think, yeah, publishing is it's a different beast for sure, but it's one of those things where the work that you're doing is so fulfilling. And if you love books and you love what you're doing, I think it just carries you through, even when you're frustrated and things aren't going your way. I just have to see a really good submission or read a great book that I've been meaning to read, and then you remember why you love it and why you're doing this to yourself.
And I mean, well, you guys, for your new issue, your submissions just stopped. Actually, I've seen that you were looking for submissions. How was that? Did you get a lot of feedback? Were people kind of, did you get a lot of submissions? Were they what you wanted? How was that going? Because submissions are an interesting one, I think, always. It's always a bit
we had an awesome. Yeah, it's up in the air, isn't it? But we had an awesome submissions campaign this year, and we had a really, really good amount of submissions. I think it might have been the highest amount of submissions we've had so far. I think, don't quote me, but we had a really, really great amount, especially for poetry and fiction and really high caliber stuff. So it's been really exciting, because we're going into the stage where we're going to start editing things and deciding what's going to go in the magazine and where. And this is because it's my first year on the team. I've not done that before, so there's a lot of the things we're doing are new to me. So it's really exciting to sort of go into this new chapter and know that when we come out the other side, we'll have an actual physical magazine in our hands, sort of to validate all the work that we've done, which
is always lovely. To have that kind of the print, the kind of physical, the kind of show of your effort is it's the nicest bit, in my opinion. And I mean,
yeah, it's so true.
You were speaking about, obviously earlier, kind of, how it's really nice within your team, everyone's kind of got this space, and it feels really nice to kind of have a team and create this space for yourself and kind of work together. And how do you feel, I mean, with people with submissions, do you feel the same? You're kind of giving everyone a space to kind of unapologetically speak about themselves and present their artwork really in a way that they might not be able to normally?
I think exactly like you said, it's that chance to give a lot of other creatives the chance to see that their work is good, that their work is that their voice matters, and that they've got a place where they can be published in the magazine, and there's a space for them. I think that's really important, because also I think there's a lot of sort of mystery around publishing, and it can be quite hard to get published if you're an author or anything like that. And I think it's a really nice confidence boost, and also sort of gives someone the opportunity to realize that actually I'm really good at what I do, and what I'm doing has worth. And if I want to be published, or if I want to go into have my art published or any of that, I can actually do that. And I think it's really great. That's such a good space that Onyx offers, and the chance for people to know that they're good enough, in a sense. I think that's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we actually have a workshop coming up in October as well from Ashamed Magazine. I don't know if you've ever heard of them or not, but Ashamed Magazine, and she's her talk is actually on creating space for writers of color, because that's similar to Onyx. Her whole publication, her name's Halima, who runs it, and her whole publication is kind of, she was a writer and she didn't feel there was space for her, so she's kind of done a similar thing and create space. So I think it's really interesting, and I mean, if you want to tune into that one, it's in October as well.
Sounds good. I definitely will. No, it's so true, because I think especially with independent magazines, there's not, you know, all the politics behind corporate publishing. You can kind of like do what, you know, what you want to do, what works for you. There's no one telling you this book's not going to sell, because it's your magazine. You can do what you want in a sense, and you can, you know, tap into what you want to tap into, whereas, you know, you do have that restraint in corporate publishing. Like if you wanted to acquire something, you know, your boss has to give you the green light, and sales have to give you the green light, and everybody else has to sort of be on board for you to take it further, whereas I think there's not that pressure when you're working on independent magazines, because, you know, it's a different kind of beast, and you're sort of directly getting in touch with people, whereas you don't have that so much in corporate publishing.
Well, speaking of corporate publishing, I will leave you to speak more about it. Obviously, yeah, I will leave you now to do your talk, and I'll come back at the end just to kind of round off with you, and like, yeah, after questions and all that kind of jazz. So I guess now I will hand over to you for your talk on corporate publishing and how to get into the industry. So bye for now. Let me know if you need any technical help. Let me know, because I will be watching. My 2 goes on Zoom make me a pro, so you know.
Okay.
See you in a minute. Bye.
Hopefully we'll smooth sailing from now on, and no one interrupted. Bye. All right. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll just like quickly introduce myself again. My name's Aje Roberts, and I'm the deputy editor for Onyx Magazine, and I'm also an editorial assistant at an imprint called Century and Arrow, which is part of Penguin Random House. So this talk, corporate publishing and how to get into it, I hope is just a useful kind of guide to give you some direction or some insight onto things that you maybe haven't had a chance to think about yet, or things that you just haven't looked into. So hopefully this is super helpful for you. So I'll just get stuck straight into it. So essentially, my journey into publishing, I originally thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I went to law school and discovered that statutes were not my thing, and I just couldn't hack law. It just wasn't for me, and I kind of had a sort of semi quarter life crisis, thinking, well, what am I going to do, because I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 11, and now I like feel a bit aimless after, you know, university. So I went to do my master's at UCL in ancient history, just to root myself really, because I did classics at undergrad. And, you know, while I was doing that, I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and, you know, what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted to make money essentially. And, you know, I had a discussion with my dad, and he actually suggested publishing. And I obviously had always been a lover of books, absolutely love books, can't get enough. I have a ridiculous amount of books in my room, and unfortunately no bookshelves, so I've started a like whole neat pile next to my sofa, and I just love the escapism of fiction particularly. And I decided to see what publishing was all about, and see if it was something that could be a sustainable career for me. So the first thing I did was I applied for the Bloomsbury work experience. So Bloomsbury is an independent publisher, and you know, I applied for that, and you apply, and if you get accepted, they give you like a slot like 9 months in advance, because that's how many people are trying to get these work experiences. But once I actually got in there and I did my 2 weeks in with the editorial team, I realized that I absolutely loved publishing, and specifically editorial. I mean, I always figured if I was going to be in publishing, it would be editorial, but sometimes when you think something's going to be a certain way, that's not always the case. So getting inside of an actual publishing company and seeing how they worked, going to their meetings and things like that, just gave me a real insight into publishing in general, and really sort of solidified the idea that that's the career choice that I wanted to take. And it kind of really lit a fire under me to, you know, get going and trying to get into it, because at that point I didn't really realize how competitive publishing is. I mean, it's especially for editorial, it is really competitive, but once you get in, it is so worth it. And I applied for a grad scheme at HarperCollins, the BAME grad scheme, and I wasn't successful. I think this was in 2018, but they put me in what they call the pipeline. So once I got into the pipeline, I was actually contacted for a couple of jobs. So one of them was in sales, I think, and one was in publicity, and I interviewed for one of them. And unfortunately for me, I have quite a glass face and I can't really lie. So when they, they ask you questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years time? I couldn't quite say, well, actually I want to be an editorial. So obviously I wasn't successful in getting any of those jobs, but I was actually offered an editorial internship at HQ, which is one of the imprints at HarperCollins. So I went in the summer of 2018, I think, and did 6 weeks at HQ. So this was my first sort of elongated amount of time in publishing and in editorial specifically as well. And I just fell in love with it all over again. I was like, this is definitely what I want to do. And I applied for internships while I was there, had a couple of interviews. Again, one of them was marketing and I didn't quite get it, but I was kind of happy about it because a lot of the people I spoke to said, all you need to do is get your foot in the door and then you can make a lateral move. But for me, I just, I kind of knew I couldn't really fake it to get in, and I had to just apply for editorial jobs. And then after my experience at HarperCollins, I was actually really lucky to get a internship at One World. So One World's a really, really small independent publisher based in London, and I actually had a contact there who was an alumni at my secondary school, and she brought me in and she gave me a really useful talk about things I can do to get a job in editorial. And she told me how she wasn't actually hiring any interns at the moment because she couldn't pay them, but that she'd keep me in mind and was happy to give me some skills and some sort of advice on what to do next. And then it turns out one of her assistant editors left and they really needed help at Christmas, just going into the busy Christmas period, and she offered me a paid internship, which at that time was quite rare. So I was very happy for that, and I took that, and I was with them for about 6 or 7 weeks as well. And at that point, I felt confident to start applying for entry-level roles, and I applied for my current role now after applying for many, many other entry-level roles as well, which usually you'd never get a reply, and that's just the nature of the job. If you've not got a reply after 2 weeks, just forget about it. If you hear something, then it's a nice surprise, but otherwise don't hold on. And that was my first interview that I got, the first interview I actually got invited to for the editorial assistant role at Century and Arrow, and my application was successful, and I've been in that job ever since. It's been about 19 months now, and I've learned so much about commercial fiction, and I feel like I've progressed so much, and the things that I've learned about the publishing industry have only really scratched the surface. Because I think as well, especially with editorial, you really are a project manager. You're buying the book, but you're overseeing everything from acquisition to publication. So it is such an interesting job, and no 2 days are the same, which is one of the reasons why I really do love publishing as well as editing. I mean, that's the really fun bit, isn't it? That's the bit that you most enjoy, being able to polish and work on an author's book with them to bring it to bring their vision to the best that it can be. And that's my favorite part of the job. But also alongside my work at Century and Arrow, I'm also the deputy editor at Onyx Magazine, which I joined in May. So I actually met Theophina at Cornerstone as well. So she was she was an intern at Murky Books, which is inside of the same division that I work at, and we met, and it was just fate. And she told me about her amazing magazine and all the things she was doing, and at that point I'd thought about doing something in an independent magazine, but I wasn't really sure how to start it or what to do. And when she told me about her magazine, I was completely in awe and inspired, and I thought it was amazing. And then obviously lockdown happened, and it just so happened that when she was looking for new staff for the 20 to 2021 team, I saw the application and I applied, and here we are 5 months later. I'm absolutely loving it, and it's such a great experience alongside what I do at Penguin Random House. And again, like I said earlier, it's just the most fulfilling work because that you're seeing yourself reflected in the pages and you're getting that representation and uplifting Black creatives, which is such a passion for me. So that's really my journey so far, and hopefully I've got some tips that can help you find your way into corporate publishing as well. So I know it seems really super obvious, but the first thing that you can do is sort of, know what jobs are there. So as well as, I mean, this counts for work experience and internships, you've got to find them. So, make sure you're aware of the jobs that you want and where they're coming out. So look at places like indeed.com. You can set up email alerts for, the title of the job that you're looking for. So if it's an editorial assistant or publicity assistant or sales assistant, whatever it is, you can set yourself up an alert. So I've got that right now. I get weekly emails about assistant editor roles, which is the next role up from where I am now. And it's all about actually knowing, because I think that's half the battle. Because if you find out about it after the deadline's already gone, that's not going to help you. So I think getting things like that set up will really put you in a good place to see the jobs that are out there and the work experience. I think, again, for me, I got really stuck into the fact that I needed to do a lot of work experience and that I needed to do lots of internships to have enough experience to get hired, when actually an entry-level role, you're not required to have experience. You're supposed to come into it not knowing. So I think don't hold yourself back to not applying to an entry-level role until you've got a work experience or internship on your CV, because you never know what could happen. And again, entry-level roles are supposed to be for people who don't have experience. But also, if you can get, while you're trying to also apply for full-time jobs, if you can get yourself in for work experience and if you can get yourself in for internships, the more the better. And I appreciate that, especially at the moment, due to lockdown and coronavirus, it's not as easy, but I know a lot of publishers are rolling out remote work experiences at the moment. And so, try and keep abreast of those and see if you can get yourself at least some, so I think it's not as, obviously it's not the same as actually if you were in the office, but at least if you can get yourself something on your CV, the more the better. But again, so other places to look for jobs are LinkedIn. So you can also do job alerts on LinkedIn. I find LinkedIn useful, not as useful as Indeed. Indeed has been what's really worked the best for me. But again, you can get your weekly LinkedIn alerts with jobs that LinkedIn think would work for you, or jobs that you've saved, the alerts that you've saved. And then again, Twitter seems to be the social media platform for publishing. Everything is happening on Twitter. So if you, I would suggest, I've got a slide that I can show you later of all the places that you should follow. But if you can follow things like Book Twitter and all the main publishers like Penguin Random House, Hachette, Pan Macmillan, Simon & Schuster, and they've all got imprints inside of them. So if you don't know what an imprint is, basically it's kind of like a pyramid. So you've got a publishing house. So for example, I work at Penguin Random House, and then the publishing house inside of Penguin Random House that I work at is called Cornerstone, and then the imprint inside of that is called Century and Arrow. So a division can have more than one imprint, or or not. It depends really where you work. But I've lost my train of thought now. But yeah, basically everyone who's an imprint or is a publishing house, they'll usually have some kind of social media. So if you follow them, a lot of the time they will put out jobs and internships and work experience on Twitter. So Twitter is a really useful tool, and I don't actually know how to do it, but I've heard there are such a thing as Twitter alerts. So if you can do that, also very useful for you to do. Again, Instagram, not so hot for for things in publishing, but Instagram is still a useful tool. All of the publishing houses use social media, so you can find things like Penguin Books UK, Hachette, all those kinds of publishing. The big publishers and the independent publishers all have their own Instagram accounts, so it's useful to follow them and see what's going on there. And then lastly, career websites. So all the main publishers will obviously have their own career. Apparently I can't say the word career today. So all of the websites, all of the big publishing houses will have their own career websites. So make sure that you're checking those as well and have them bookmarked. I know after doing my work experience at Bloomsbury, I really, really wanted to work there. So I was weekly checking the career page for Bloomsbury and had all of those pages bookmarked. And again, at the end of this talk, I'll show you my visual aid of websites that you should be aware of. But then once you find a job, the big task is applying for that job. So if you want to do editorial specifically, I would apply for everything you can, because it's such a competitive field and you can always make a lateral move later. I did try to do that and it didn't quite work out for me, and I was lucky enough to go straight into the editorial. But if you can get yourself a role anywhere else, do that. And also it's good to have knowledge of other parts of the, like other departments in publishing, and that's only going to inform your editorial work later. So it's, don't see it as, oh, I'm wasting time in somewhere that I don't want to be. You're getting your foot in the door, you're inside of the company, you'll see the internal job posts, you know, it's a good place to be. So even if you're wanting to do editorial and you find yourself somewhere like inventory or archives or sales or publicity, it's all helping and it's all going to inform you in the future. So like, if you can do that, go for it. Otherwise, you know, do just apply for editorial roles or whichever role that you're wanting to get into. And then again, one of the most important things is a CV. So make sure your CV is maximum 2 pages. So that's like 1 on each side. You don't want it to be any longer than that. You want your relevant experience to be at the top. If you've got relevant experience to publishing, put that right at the top. If not, that's okay. Put your transferable skills and things that you think will work, or that will get employers or HR's eye, because oftentimes the editor or the commissioning editor or whoever is going to be your line manager won't even look at the first round. You've just got to get enough things in there that HR put you through to the next round so that you can get yourself into an interview, because that's really where you're going to click with the person who's hiring you, and you're really going to be able to showcase your skills. So you want to make sure that your CV is as good as it can be. And I know it seems like something very simple, but if you're talking about your organizational skills and your attention to detail, proofread. Make sure that your CV doesn't have any mistakes, because, you know, they'll see that and they'll spot that, and that's going to be a mark against you. Obviously not the end of the world, but try and make sure that if you know, if you've looked at it too much, see if a friendly parent or sibling or friend will look through it for you, just to make sure that you've got that as good as it can be. And arguably the most important thing is the cover letter. So not all, annoyingly, not all jobs when you're applying will want a cover letter. Sometimes they'll ask you 3 questions, which is so frustrating. So if you're gonna go apply for something, make sure you're checking what you need to do for the application, because I've been there where I've logged on about an hour before the job application is due to close and realised that my amazing cover letter that I've spent so much time on is completely useless to me, because they want me to answer 3 questions instead. So don't do that to yourself. So make sure you know what they want from you, and if it is a cover letter, which oftentimes it is, that it's more, I would say you're more likely to find that the company is going to ask you for a cover letter rather than questions, but you know that they could still throw that spanner in the works, so beware. But yeah, again, your cover letter, you want it to be no more than 1.5 pages really. Ideally it's got to be 1 page, and I know I have a real problem with being concise because I have so much to say, but you really don't want it to be much longer than that. You want to be concise, you want to be straight to the point, and you want to try not to go over 1 page if you can. I know it's really, really hard. In terms of cover letter and what you want to do, for me, I usually like to start it with a quote that I like about books, but obviously that's not, you don't need to do that, it's not a prerequisite. I just like to do that personally. And then, you know, after that, you want to put straight away, your first paragraph is going to be why you want the job. And tell them why you want the job. They want to see that you're passionate and you know exactly what you're talking about, and that the job that you're applying for, you're actually like hungry for that. So tell them why you want the job, and, you know, tell them, be unabashed about it. I want this job, and I will be the best person for the job because, you know. And then after that, you want to make sure that you've got your most recent experience to do with publishing at the top, like second paragraph. Again, if you don't have any experience in publishing, that's okay. Have your most recent work experience, or any experience that you've got, whether it's university or you know, a job, anything like that. Put that at the top, and then have your other experience sort of in descending order. And then put your extracurriculars. I usually would put those at the bottom. So again, with my cover letters, I'll talk about my time at like Penguin Random House first, after I've said why I want the job. Then I'll say like the skills that I've had or learned from being an editorial assistant. And then, for example, before I do my last paragraph, I'll talk about Onyx Magazine and what I do there as well. So make sure you've got it so that you're keeping them interested and keeping your extracurriculars in there. And if, for example, you work for an independent magazine and you haven't done an internship, put the independent magazine stuff first, because that's most recent, like the most relevant to publishing. And then, yeah, after your extracurriculars, you want to have your ending paragraph, show your passion for this particular company or imprint, and make sure you're adding in a couple of their authors and their books that you like. So most imprints or, you know, publishing companies, they'll have at least one book that you've heard of. So, you know, talk about that. And also, by the time it comes to the interview, make sure you've read at least like 25% of it so you can talk about it. But I always try to read at least one book for whatever imprint or company that I'm applying for, just so that I know that I've can talk about one of their books enthusiastically and tell them how much I love their list. But again, you know, make sure you're sprinkling in a couple of their authors that you like and a couple of the books as well. And, you know, make sure if it's fiction and non-fiction, have both of those too. And, you know, if it's commercial fiction, so that's mass market fiction, make sure you're not putting that your favourite book of theirs is a literary title. So make sure that you're catering your cover letter to the place that you're actually applying, because I think that's really, really important as well. Because I mean, most people have the main sort of template of their cover letter and then they'll sort of, you know, adapt it. So for me, it's like the first and the last paragraph that I make the most changes on, and then I'll make changes to the middle section, you know, if I've learnt new skills since I've done my previous cover letter. So, you know, make sure you've got your, you know, you've done your research, and once you've done one good cover letter, you can reuse that and build on it and make sure that you're making it better and better each time that you apply for something else. But again, make sure that if you're doing that, you've got that attention to detail, you're not calling them the wrong company or naming authors that they don't publish, all those kind of things. I know they seem pretty like self-explanatory, but easy mistakes to make. So if you're lucky enough to get to the interview, you want to, again, make sure you've done your research on the company and the imprint. And again, know the difference between commercial and literary, which is mass market and more upmarket fiction, and, you know, which one they lean towards as well. Really good to know, because, you know, you can talk about if you're applying to a commercial imprint that does a lot of commercial fiction, but sometimes they do maybe some crossover commercial and upmarket fiction. You can mostly be talking about commercial, but say how you also enjoy literary or crossover fiction as well. Make sure you're sort of, I want to say, like catering your tastes to where you're applying. So you want to make sure that they know that you're, not that you're confident about the books that they publish, but that you're enthusiastic about them, and that the books that they publish you would want to read in your own time as well as read at work. Obviously that doesn't necessarily have to be the truth, but you want to make them believe it. And then lost my train of thought here. Cater your answers to the type of place you're applying, and read at least one book that they have published. When it comes to scenario questions as well, you want to try and answer with the STAR technique. I think don't get too bogged down in it, but if you practice it before your interview, it can be really useful. So the STAR technique is a way of answering questions. So you want to give the situation first, then the task, then the action, and then the result. And that's just a really neat way of answering questions and making sure that you've answered a question, and show someone that you can start with a situation and bring it like through to a resolution, that you've got it from beginning to end, and this is how you dealt with it. So I think that really good, you know, interview technique to use. And also, actually, if you can do interview prep with someone else, or do a practice interview, or maybe some practice questions, that's also really good for you to give yourself like that chance to you know, not be so nervous and kind of get yourself ready for the questions that they might ask. And then again, I keep saying this, but it's so important to show your passion and enthusiasm, you know, not only for their list, but for publishing in general. Obviously for books, show your passion for books and your hunger for the job. I mean, there's going to be, especially at the moment when everyone's working remotely, for entry-level roles, you can have upwards of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people applying for these roles. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, you're really marking yourself out from the crowd. You're showing your hunger for the job. You know, show the interviewer how hungry you are and how much you want it, how badly you want it, and how you're going to be the best hire that they've ever had. You know, really show them that hiring you is kind of the only option, because that's going to make you stand out when they're thinking about who to hire later on. And then also, if you have special skills, talk about those. Make sure to try and shoehorn them in in whichever way you can that seems the most natural. But yeah, if they're special skills, especially if they're transferable to publishing, so for example, if you have your own blog or you work on a magazine or anything of that kind, make sure that you're shoehorning that in if they don't ask you directly about it, which oftentimes they may do if you put it in your cover letter. And then organizational skills are key. Unfortunately, you will never escape admin. Admin will be a part of your life, and especially for an assistant role, there will be a lot of admin. So they're really looking for someone who's highly organized, has attention to detail, can juggle multiple things at once. So I think my question was, when I was applying for the role that I'm in now for Century and Arrow, was like, how do you feel about admin, or do you feel like you can take on admin? And before I was at Century and Arrow, I was managing a hot yoga studio, so there was also admin in that, and I spoke about the kind of admin that I was doing at the role that I was in and how it would be transferable to an editorial assistant. And that obviously worked because I got the job. But don't forget, if you're worried about that you don't have enough direct experience, a lot of the things that you're doing in university or in your part-time job or full-time job are transferable. So things like essay writing, all the admin that you have to do with any kind of job, all these kinds of things, they are transferable, and you can use them as reasons to be hired and as your experience that you've gained already. Because I think obviously, especially with publishing, people assume that you're going to do English at university and then go straight into publishing, and that's not the case. And now more than ever, publishing is looking for people who haven't necessarily gone to university or have different skills and do different things, because otherwise, publishing's been, if you ask me, some of the stuff that we do is very stale and same old, and it's, again, very, very white. So they really need to expand the job pool to have more people from different experiences, because those are the kinds of books that we need to be publishing. So really don't talk yourself out of it or think that you're not good enough, because you are. So apply, do it, and getting rejected sometimes you won't even get an email back to say you've been rejected. You just won't hear, and it can be really debilitating, and it can really knock your confidence. And I think you kind of have selective amnesia once you get in about how great it is. But my mum was reminding me the other day about how hard it was for me to get in, and how I did get so many rejections. And at that point it would be easy to say, well, I'm gonna give up. Like, I'm not gonna carry on, I'll just leave it. What's the point? Like, I'm not getting anywhere. But it really only takes one person to see your potential and hire you. And again, once your foot is in the door, it's in the door. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean things are going to be easy, or that you're going to be able to that things are going to be easy and you're just going to be able to shoot up the ranks and get yourself to editor or marketing manager or publicity manager in super quick time. Especially in editorial, progression is murky, and the pay is not good. I will not lie to you, the pay doesn't get good until you get to like commissioning editor, sort of. That's like 3-4 roles up from where I am now. But again, once you get there, it is worth it, and the skills that you learn at assistant level are such a good foundation for your future in publishing. So if you're struggling to get in, or you're just starting, it might be a long road. I mean, I think it took me all in all about a year to get into publishing, from when I first did my 2 weeks experience at Bloomsbury. And honestly, I think that might have been a bit quick. I feel like I just got quite a good few lucky breaks that meant that things moved quite quickly for me. But it might take a long time, it might take a bit longer, and it's just all about how you've got to put your best foot forward, to keep applying and learn from your mistakes and learn from your rejections. If you can get feedback, really, really useful to get feedback, because someone can tell you the things that you didn't quite do, and you can build on that and make sure that you're doing that next time. So feedback really is invaluable. I know companies often will send you that rejection letter that they've sent to everyone, but you've got nothing to lose by asking them to give you specific feedback to you. And if they don't, they don't. But if you can get that feedback, then really, really, really useful, because at the end of the day, learning from your mistakes is what's going to elevate you and take you to the next level. So, you know, you can be sad about those rejections. It's okay, like take it on the chin, have your pity party for as long as you need, but then you got to pick yourself back up and keep going. Sorry, I digress there, but yeah, again, admin, you won't escape it, but if you can show your organizational skills, all the better. And last thing on my list are external things that you can be doing. So you want to be reading widely as you possibly can. Know the market. And when I say know the market, like know what's coming out now and what's hot. So what's doing well, what's in the bestseller list, what's Waterstones supporting, what are some of the indie books, like booksellers supporting, who's making noise online, who's selling lots of copies, what are the readers wanting, and try and get in touch with that as much as you can, because that's really important for you to talk about in your interview, and yeah, knowing what the reader wants. And I think to some extent this can be like kind of, it will come to you naturally, but also again, like think about when you're reading a book, what do you want from this book, what are you looking for, and in what ways did it deliver, and what ways is it like it didn't. And that kind of like critical thinking about a book is really going to be helpful for you when you're talking about experience that you have and talking about your knowledge of the publishing industry as a whole. I feel like that's such a buzzword, like the publishing industry as a whole. Everyone wants to know what you know about the publishing industry as a whole, so if you can talk about that, then so much the better. And again, finding I was about to say publishing industry as a whole again, but it is really important. And visit bookstores. Like when you go to Waterstones, look at the placement of the books. Why have they put this here? The big names are usually very easy to find at the front. The bestsellers are going to be on those like side shelves that you see as soon as you walk in the store. Like, why have they placed these books here? Look at how the gifty books are, right near the counter, because they're like the smaller pocket books that you can pick up that are going to be really useful for like the what am I saying? The smaller pocket books that you pick up that people are wanting you to like buy as sort of an afterthought. You just pick it up and maybe it's not as expensive, and it's something that you can give someone as a present and things like that. Think about why they're putting these books and where and the reason for it. And again, show your interest in the publishing industry and in books and editorial or whatever space of publishing that you're wanting to go into. Show your interest, join a magazine, start your own blog, start a bookstagram, start a become a booktuber. Whatever it is that works with what you enjoy, make sure that you're doing something to showcase that. So I think before I got a job, I had a blog that I did book reviews on. It wasn't a big blog, there wasn't a lot of traffic to it, but I put it on my job applications. Anyone who was looking to hire me could go in there and be like, okay, well, she's given us the link for her website. They can go look and see that I've written, this and this review, and I'm critically looking at books. So anything you can do to show your interest is really, really useful. So that is mostly the things that I want to say. So I feel like I've waffled on a bit, but I hope that you found that useful. I will share my screen just to, well, let's see if this works, just to show you my PowerPoint. Oh, I think we've got it. Let's see if I can, oh, slideshow. So yeah, just corporate publishing, how to get into the industry. So these are all the Twitter accounts that you should be following. So there's quite a lot of them, and I'll give you a second to note them down if you need, and I'll use this opportunity to take a drink of water. But again, there's an actual book Twitter group, or sort of, it's like a trending, like a hashtag thing on Instagram. I'm not so good at Twitter, can you tell? But you can follow a thing called Book Twitter, and that sort of shows you tweets from anything to do with books, which is really useful, which I'm following. And it just came up after I followed a load of different publishing accounts, so hopefully that happens for you as well if you're as inept as me at Twitter. But things like People of Publishing, Book Careers, Outward Tate, all the career websites for each publisher, Book Brunch, what else is it? IPG Books, Women in Publishing, Onyx Magazine, and Creative Access, and all those kinds of things, because they're where you'll see advice on how to get into publishing, but also jobs will be posted up there as well. And yeah, I'm sure this can be circulated for anyone who wants it, who doesn't get everything after the webinar. But here are Facebooks you can join. So if you're looking to get into publishing, there's Publishing Hopefuls, which I've heard is a really, really great group. I was declined because I was already in publishing, but then the organizer actually steered me towards Publishing Newbies, for people who are in the industry and, you know, newly in the industry. I mean, even though I've been in the industry for about a year and a half, I'd still call myself a newbie. So those are sort of useful Facebook groups that you can join, and, you know, you can talk to other people and get advice and things like that. So definitely worth having a look. And then accounts to follow on Instagram, again, Creative Access, career guidance and resources, which I found really useful. The Bookseller, you can also, I didn't mention this earlier, but you can also set up sort of job alerts on the Bookseller too, and you can also get the Bookseller's sort of weekly email about what's going on in the publishing industry. So there's, I think you have to pay to see all of the articles, but you can still see some of the articles for free and see what's going on in the publishing industry. So really useful to look at before interviews and things like that. Then there's Book Machine, the Publishing Post, Publisher Association, IPG, and again, Onyx Magazine. And then websites that you should check, the Bookseller, again, they have lots of articles on there about, you know, new acquisitions, big books, or just general things that are going on in the book industry. IPG Books, again, Book Careers, Book Brunch, and Onyx Magazine. So that is my PowerPoint presentation and really concludes my talk. So we'll go to questions now, but, you know, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you've found it useful and not just been bored out of your eyeballs for the past 40 minutes. But again, and that's my socials as well. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm Aje Roberts1, and then these are all of the Onyx Magazine socials too. So thank you very much.
Yay, that was super good. That was great and really useful. I think like all your advice kind of about CVs and kind of reaching out to people is super important, because it's always really disheartening. Like everyone gets rejected by about 100 people before you get that yes. But it's that one yes which is like so important. So I think that's a really good piece of advice, because I know people kind of, you know, when it comes to stuff like this, they apply to one and they apply to their dream position, and when they get turned down, they're so upset. But you kind of, as I said, like you know, you need to kind of apply to like as many people as you can, throw yourself out there, and also not be shy to ask, you know, not be shy to kind of, as you said, apply for that job you don't think you're, you know, worthy of, because you don't know what people are going to think. So I think that was super useful. Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's so true. You never know what's going to happen, and, you know, rejections really hurt. I myself recently got rejected from a job that was like a dream job that I wanted, and, you know, it sucks. It really, really sucks, but you learn something from each application, and again, you've like, it just makes you come out of it the other side stronger. And, you know, like if you're not giving up, or if even after hundreds of rejections you still want to get into publishing, you know it's the right place for you to be, and it can take a long time, but, you know, it's so worth it, and don't give up.
Does anyone have any questions at all? Let's see.
Now we hear crickets.
Yeah, exactly. The cicadas. I mean, if no one has any questions, I don't know. We'll give people a second to brainstorm, I guess. Which means it's like at uni when they, you know, that awkward silence. I always had that at uni, and you kind of, they're like, any questions? And no one's got a question, and you don't want to say anything, and it's that kind of like that kind of awkward. So now I feel like the teacher, where I'm like I'm like, come on guys, think. But
well, maybe if there are no questions, it means I did my job right.
Oh, there's a question. Maybe you do your job that right. Let's see. What is it? Pim said,
oh, what is the next thing coming for Onyx? Okay, so we just closed our submissions for Onyx Magazine, so super exciting. We do have our print magazine, which, hoping I'm not making up things when I say this, should be available from November. So really exciting now. What we're doing is, you know, editing the submissions that we've accepted and really getting the magazine together, which is so exciting, because you can start to see everything forming and really you know, starting to become an actual like physical magazine. But also we are still running our blog as well. So we've got our editors and sub-editors, and also external third-party authors for the blog. So, you know, if you miss the submissions for the actual physical magazine, we are still taking submissions for the blog posts. So we're trying to keep up at least one to two posts a week. So we are looking for contributions for that, and we're still editing articles to go out on our blog as well to try and keep, you know, a steady stream of content going there. So that's also really exciting, because we did just launch the blog a few months ago, and we've had some really, really amazing pieces, and we've got a really awesome piece about Carnival coming up. So, you know, wait for that one, but that one will be coming soon. But yeah, those are the awesome things that we're doing at Onyx, and yeah, really exciting, and hopefully you will check them out.
I think there's another question as well. I see a second.
Okay, is there any advice you would give for disabled people wanting to get into the industry but struggle to get through the door due to accessibility, being denied and not thought about? That's a really good question, Artie. Yeah, unfortunately, in the publishing industry, it is really terrible. They don't think about, you know, they preach diversity and inclusion, but they don't think about the intersectionality of that, and how that we need to be able to create spaces for everyone. So I'd say, like, definitely don't be disheartened. And, you know, I know it's really easy to say and hard to do, but keep applying and keep advocating for yourself, because, you know, your work matters and you deserve to be in the industry, and keep going. And especially places like, I know Hachette have really seem to be leading the industry in making sure that, you know, that they are more open to everyone. So make sure that you're looking at the kind of, you know, the kind of, what's the word, the kind of companies that you're wanting to work for, and are they opening up a space for you, because that will be a nicer place to work as well. So I'm hoping that answers your question. It's not good, and I'm hoping that it will change, you know, we'll start to get better, but definitely try not to be disheartened, and there is a space for you, and there's a place that you deserve to be. So keep applying, and especially now while we're remote working, I think it's really showing that, you know, we can do a lot of our jobs from home. So I think this is a precedent for you now as well, to apply for those jobs and start working remotely, so that you won't have some of those issues of unfortunately not actually being able to even access the building and things like that. But definitely, I think one of the positive things that coronavirus has shown is that we can actually do our jobs from home. So I think that's definitely something to take heart in, and to, you know, keep applying, especially now while we're working remotely, to help get your foot in the door. I hope that helps.
Well, so I can, Artie, I can send you by DM, like I follow and know of quite a few zines, like independent zines actually, that are focused around kind of disability. Some of them specifically like chronic illnesses, they all kind of vary. But I can send you some of those because they might be places to start to look to get your stuff published, or gain some kind of experience, or I guess access more knowledge, because they're very specific in what they do. So I can send you those on Instagram as well, because I think, like, as well as you're saying, you know, it's not a very diverse industry. It's completely whitewashed it's not very intersectional at all, and people are creating spaces for so many different reasons, like people are creating their own space within the industry because there needs to be space, because it's completely outdated, really. So I can point you in the direction of some people who are doing that, and they may have some interesting things to say, or that you can read or gain experience or anything. So I'll send you those as well. I mean, if no one had, thank you. I appreciate both my effort to answer. I asked the same question in a Cosmo Zoom call and they ignored it. So nice to be seen. No problem. Well, that's the thing. Cosmo is a very, I think, big example of kind of like your mainstream publishing. And I think with a lot of that, it's very much suits its own agenda without really pushing the boat out, or thinking of other people. And I think a lot of big magazines, they kind of have their target audience, and they don't even consider people outside of their very marginal bracket, which is also normally not a marginalized bracket. It's normally a very centric, because I guess sadly that also sells, you know, if you're catering.
It's also crazy to me that they, you know, that's such a large percentage of the population is cut out and they're only catering to a certain amount of people, because again, in publishing, so many of the books that we do are by white authors about white people, and there's no intersectionality, there's no diversity, and it's like you're technically cutting out such a large amount of the consumer market who would buy books and want to read and see themselves, you know, represented in books. And that's why I think it's like I'm so passionate about having diversity and inclusion in publishing and having it be intersectional, because identity is so nuanced. You can't just, you know, it's not two-dimensional and it's not one brush fits all, and everyone wants to pick up a book and see their lived experiences in there. And I think that's one of the, you know, drawbacks of publishing, is that it is so like it is a bit, you know, it's just so white. And I think, you know, again, they are, you know, I know PRH are doing sort of initiatives to work on it in inclusivity and things like that, and people are working on it. But again, it's just like, you know, they keep saying things like, or people keep saying things like, we want to have our society reflected, you know, in our employees and in our authors, and that's all well and good, but, you know, we want to actually see that. Like, I don't want to be in editorial and be the only black girl in the room. Like, no one wants that, and we all want to have everybody's experiences, because the more people we have from different backgrounds, from different experiences, you know, the better and the more well-rounded our publishing will be. So yeah, I mean, it's not in a great place now, but my hope is that as, you know, time continues, that we will be able to just be more inclusive. And I mean, it's not much of a sort of balm or makes anyone feel that great who is being excluded, but because, you know, you want to be in there now, you don't have to wait. But again, you know, you've got to infiltrate, and there's a space for you. If you're not seeing yourself, you know, reflected, you know, find a place that you are. If you're not, you know, if someone's not writing the things that you want to read, write them. Start your own magazine, start your own business, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you're giving representation to someone else. Because I mean, I think the first time I read a book that was about someone who was biracial, which is my background, I think I was like 13, and it was Mallory Blackman. It was one of the Noughts and Crosses books. But, you know, what was I doing for 13 years before that? Why did it take me so long to find someone who actually had the same experience as me? You know, it's crazy, and it's frustrating, but, you know, take heart, because there are people inside the publishing industry who are trying to change it, and people trying to get in. You guys, your voice really matters in the new generation of publishing. You're so important, because you're going to change sort of the face of publishing as it is now.
I mean, I agree. I think that like, if you look at the publishing industry and the kind of way that people used to do it, it's hopefully, thank God, dying slowly. And you see all kind of these new zines and these new kind of publications rising up from people who are in their like early 20s, you know, even younger sometimes, with a much more, you know, well-rounded, inclusive message, and people actually doing stuff for themselves. As you said, if you don't see space for yourself, although it's annoying that you have to put in all that work anyway, you know, it doesn't, you know, that it doesn't obviously immediately work in your favor and you can slot in. But if you don't see that space for yourself, create that space for yourself, and don't let yourself be put down by these, you know, by these old, white men who are just sitting there with their lots of money, and kind of rule, unfortunately, the whole world. So, you know, but I think definitely, hopefully, we will see more changes as these old farts, you know, kick it, and new people kind of come in and hopefully change the face of what's going on, because it's well overdue, and it's not good enough at all, by any means now, not at all, but it's long overdue a change, and hopefully we are seeing people, you know, do that, and seeing more space for everyone, and hopefully everyone can kind of work together to make sure that happens, because as I said, it's been kind of ignored for way too long, and people are just kind of comfortable in the way it is, and it needs to be like uncomfy, and it needs to kind of, you know, well, it needs to be uncomfortable for people to realize that there needs, you know, that there needs to be change, and there really does. So yeah, Artie, I'll definitely I'll send you some information on Instagram and see what I can find, because I have a few in mind already, but I'll have a little look as well and see what there is. Yeah, I think if no one else has any questions, then I guess that's it. Thank you so much. It was really great and really, really insightful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad it was useful, and thank you again for having me. It's been really fun. I was a bit nervous, but hopefully
No,
it didn't show too much.
they're
But
scary. They're scary. But what can I say? I did the first one last week and I was so nervous, so I completely understand. But you didn't see it. You pulled it off. It was great. So thank you so much.
Oh, fab. Yeah, Auntie said very informative. Thank you very much. I'm glad it was useful. And also, if anyone does want those slides, I'm happy to send those to you, Izzy, so you can circulate if anyone wants them as well.
I will do. Thank you. And I made you the host, so you now have the power to end the meeting. So whenever
I need to end it. Okay.
Whenever you want, we can all sign out. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
On 8 o'clock. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye.